My parents kept calling my 12-year-old the dumb one, while her cousin was praised nonstop. At their anniversary, they announced that the cousin would inherit everything, the house and the $280,000 family trust. I didn't cry. I stood up, smiled, and said that my daughter was. My parents went pale. If you've never watched a child realize she isn't wanted, I don't recommend it. My parents' anniversary was meant to be a gentle evening. Cake, speeches, family photos, a few awkward hugs, the usual. My daughter, Eliana, treated it like a task. She got ready early, fixed her hair twice, and told me, "I'm going to record it for memories." She said it like she already understood that good memories don't just happen in my family. You have to capture them while they still exist. The moment we walked in, I knew what kind of night it would be. Sophia, my sister Daniela's daughter, was already surrounded. People were taking photos as if she were famous. Daniela and her husband Brandon stood behind her like proud managers. Eliana lifted her phone anyway. Hope can be stubborn. We hadn't even sat down when my dad made his first small dig. He walked past, glanced at Eliana's phone, and said, "Careful, sweetheart, try to keep up." Eliana laughed politely, the laugh kids use when they're trying to be agreeable. Then my mom came over, kissed Eliana's cheek, and said, "There's my little—" She paused, looked her over, and finished, "helper." Not granddaughter, not sweetheart, helper. Eliana's smile flickered but stayed in place. Dinner began. The room grew louder. Phones came out. A videographer moved around with a professional camera. Then the slideshow started. 20 photos of Sophia winning awards, smiling front and center. One photo of Eliana mid-sneeze. Eliana noticed. I saw her notice. She didn't comment. She just lowered her phone slightly, like adjusting the angle as if she could fix it. Then my dad took the microphone. He gave the standard 40-year speech. After that, he smiled like he was about to do something generous. "Tonight," he said, "we're also celebrating the future of this family." Daniela placed her hand on Sophia's shoulder. Sophia smiled like she'd practiced. My dad said clearly, "Sophia will inherit the house." Applause followed. My mom stepped in smoothly, taking the mic as if she'd been waiting. Her smile was bright and camera-ready. "And the family trust, $280,000, she said, nodding toward Sophia. "That goes to Sophia as well. All of it. Eliana is not included." More applause. People actually cheered like inheritance was a competition. Eliana kept her phone up for another second, like she was waiting to hear her name. It never came. As my parents stepped away from the microphone, my dad leaned toward a guest at the front table and said just loudly enough, "You know how it is. One's the genius and the other one's the dumb one." Eliana's phone dropped so fast it filmed the tablecloth. Not slowly, not politely. Her body reacted before her mind could pretend she hadn't heard. The room laughed. Not everyone, but enough. The kind of laughter people give when they're relieved it isn't them. Eliana froze, like staying still might make it hurt less, like disappearing would make things easier for everyone. I didn't cry. I stood up, I smiled, and I said that my daughter was. When I finished that sentence, my parents went pale. I should explain something. This wasn't a single incident. My parents didn't wake up that day and decide to be cruel for no reason. They've been doing this for decades. They just became more comfortable directing it at a child once they realized a child can't push back. In my family, there's always been a ranking. Daniela at the top, me somewhere near the bottom, barely included. I was 15, Sunday dinner. My dad asked Daniela about school. She listed her grades like a receipt. My mom smiled proudly. "That's my girl." Then my dad turned to me. "And Maya, how's everything?" Not school, not friends, not anything specific, just everything, like my entire existence was a general concern. "I'm fine," I said. He leaned back and smiled like he was being supportive. "Just try not to fall behind. Daniela's going places." Everyone laughed. Not cruel laughter, family laughter, normal, acceptable laughter. I laughed too, because I'd already learned the rule. If I react, I'm causing a scene. If I stay quiet, I'm being mature. So I got very good at being mature. I swallowed, I smiled, I faded. I got pregnant young. Eliana's father left early and quietly, the way some people do when they don't want to be the villain in their own story. He didn't argue, he just disappeared. So it was me. I worked, I raised Eliana, I learned how to stretch time, money, and patience. I became the kind of mom who could run errands and attend a parent-teacher meeting in the same hour and still remember snacks. My family didn't see capability, they saw a warning story. The comments started mild and grew sharper. Well, if you'd waited, kids need two parents. That's why she's behind. It's different when there's structure. And Daniela would sit there with Brandon and Sophia nodding like she understood compassion while benefiting from every comparison. Then Eliana began struggling with reading, not the I don't like homework kind, real struggling, the kind that slowly erodes a child's confidence. She stared at pages like the words were moving. She lost her place and blamed herself like it was a character flaw. She could read a word correctly once and trip over it the next time, like her brain was working against her. One night she closed her book and whispered, "Why can't my brain just work?" That sentence stays with you. I had her evaluated, dyslexia. Not rare, not shameful, not a limitation, just a different brain in a world that prefers things neat and linear. Eliana is smart, quick, funny. She remembers details from conversations I forgot minutes after they ended. She connects patterns. She creates ideas that make adults pause. She just doesn't process letters the way my parents think intelligence should look. My parents didn't respond with curiosity. They responded with judgment disguised as concern. "Oh," my mom would say, "that's hard." Last year at a holiday gathering, Eliana tried to read a card out loud, slowly, carefully, because she was trying. Someone laughed loudly. "Honey, take your time. We'll be old before you finish." A few people chuckled. Sophia took the card. "I can do it," she said confidently. The room clapped like she saved everyone from a crisis. I looked at my parents, waiting, hoping they'd step in. My mom smiled and said, "See, that's what confidence looks like." Eliana didn't cry until we were in the car. Halfway home, she asked quietly, "Mom, am I stupid?" I pulled over immediately. I turned to her and said, "No, you're not stupid. You're different, and different isn't bad." That was the moment something shifted in me. It's one thing to accept cruelty aimed at me. I've had years of practice. It's another thing to watch it land on my child and be called love. Grandma Elena noticed. She always saw more than people wanted her to. She was my mom's mother, but she didn't move like my mom. She didn't perform kindness. She was kind. There's a difference. In the months before she passed, I visited her often. Eliana liked her because Grandma didn't treat her like she was fragile. She spoke to her like a person. One afternoon, Eliana was trying to read one of Grandma's recipe cards. She stumbled on a word and tensed, expecting disappointment. Grandma covered the card with her hand and said, "Pause." Eliana looked up. "Do you know what smart people do?" Grandma asked. She shrugged. "They ask for what they need," Grandma said, "and they don't apologize for it." Then she read the card with her, slowly, calmly, no teasing, no jokes, no comparisons. After Eliana left the room, Grandma looked at me and said, "They're doing it again." I didn't ask who, I already knew. "They did it to you," she said. "Now they're doing it to her." I tried to laugh it off, because that's what I do when I don't want to cry. Grandma didn't laugh. She leaned forward. "Promise me something." "What?" I asked. "If they ever humiliate that girl publicly, if they ever cut her out like she doesn't matter, you don't sit there and accept it." I blinked. "Promise me." I promised. A week later, I visited Grandma again. She looked tired, but her eyes were clear. She pointed to a stack of papers on her table. "I'm putting protections in place," she said quietly. "For what?" I asked. "For your daughter," she said, "and for you." Then she added, almost casually, "because your mother pretends not to see what's happening, and your father pretends cruelty is honesty." I swallowed. "They'll be angry." Grandma's mouth curved slightly. "Let 'em." 8 months ago, Grandma passed away. My family grieved loudly. They posted tributes, talked about how close we all were, which is always interesting to hear from people who forget my daughter's birthday but remember Sophia's award schedule. A few weeks after the funeral, there was a knock on my door. It was evening. Eliana was in the living room watching cartoons. I opened the door to a man in a coat holding a leather folder. "Ms. Maya Friedman?" he asked. "Yes, I'm Mr. Caldwell. I represented your grandmother." My stomach dropped. I assumed debt, a mistake, or some adult problem about to land on me, because that's how life usually works. Mr. Caldwell glanced toward the living room, where Eliana laughed at the TV. He lowered his voice. "May I come in for a moment?" I let him inside. He didn't sit. He stood at my kitchen counter, careful not to take up space, like he understood that bringing paperwork into someone's home is intrusive even when it's necessary. He opened the folder and slid a seal.
"Your grandmother left this for you," he said, "and she was very clear about why." I stared at the packet. It looked official, the kind of document people assume only wealthy families deal with. For the record, rich families don't have fewer emotions. They just have nicer stationery. "What is it?" I asked. "It's a recent amendment," he said, "signed shortly before your grandmother passed." My throat went dry. "Why would she do that?" "Because she knew what was happening," he replied simply. I didn't ask him to explain. We both understood. Mr. Caldwell tapped the packet lightly. "Your grandmother's trust holds the deed to the house and manages the funds. Your parents benefit from it, but they don't control it the way they like to suggest." That statement settled something in me. A missing piece finally clicked. My parents always talked about the house like it was a crown, something they could publicly hand to Sophia with a microphone. Mr. Caldwell went on. "This amendment only activates if they ever try to exclude your daughter in a way that's undeniable, something documented, an email, a written statement, a recorded announcement." I looked at him. "Why that specific?" He didn't smile, but his expression softened. "Because your parents are careful. They say things just vaguely enough to rewrite later. Your grandmother didn't want this turning into a he said, she said." He slid the packet closer. "You're not supposed to threaten them with this. You don't wave it around. You keep it safe." I swallowed. "And if they do cross that line?" His voice lowered slightly. "Then the trust does exactly what your grandmother designed it to do." He didn't explain every detail. He didn't need to. He gave me the instructions and the tool. Then he left. I stood in my kitchen holding the packet like it was both protection and risk. I didn't want to use it. I didn't want to be the person who brings legal documents to a family gathering. But when the anniversary invitation arrived, full of phrases like celebrating our legacy in glittery script, my stomach sank. So I put the folder in my bag, just in case. And then we walked into that room full of cameras, and my parents said it out loud. When I stood up at that dinner, I didn't feel brave. I felt steady, like my body had decided fear wasn't on the schedule. My parents were mid-applause, mid-performance. Daniela was smiling like a statue. Sophia looked happy and overwhelmed in the way kids do when adults turn them into symbols. Eliana stared at the tablecloth like it was the safest place to rest her eyes. I spoke before I could overthink it. I stood up. My mind offered useless commentary because apparently it enjoys drama too. I smiled because the smile matters. A smile disarms. It also warns. And I said, clearly enough for the microphones, phones, and videographer, my daughter was named a beneficiary. The room didn't go silent all at once. It was more like a wave pulling back. Applause stopped mid-motion. A laugh stalled in someone's throat. The videographer angled toward me on instinct. My dad blinked slowly. My mom tightened her grip on her champagne glass. I didn't let them recover. Of Grandma Elena's trust, I added. I wasn't letting this become vague. The trust that owns the house. The trust that holds the $280,000. Silence followed. Not polite silence, real silence. The kind where people hold their breath because something is about to crack. My dad stepped forward like he could physically push the words back. "Maya," he said quietly, "sit down." Not "what do you mean?" Not "is Eliana okay?" Just control. My mom smiled too brightly. "Sweetheart, you must be mistaken." Daniela stood so fast her chair scraped. Brandon grabbed her elbow like he was handling a public relations emergency. Sophia looked around confused because kids sense dishonesty even if they can't name it. I pulled the folder from my bag and held it up. I didn't open it. I didn't read from it. I held it just long enough for nearby guests to see the heading and the signature at the bottom. Grandma Elena's name. My mom inhaled sharply. My dad's face went a dull shade of gray. "That's not," Daniela started. Brandon cut in loudly. "This is inappropriate." I almost laughed. "Yes, Brandon, it is inappropriate. So is publicly erasing a child with a microphone. But sure, let's discuss etiquette now." My dad raised his voice. "Where did you get that?" I said evenly. "From Grandma's attorney, after the funeral." He shook his head. "That's impossible. We're the trustees." "You were," I said, and watched the word land. My mom's smile faltered. "Maya, we were speaking generally. We didn't say Eliana gets nothing." I nodded toward the raised phones around the room. "Do you want to tell all these cameras that you didn't say it?" Then I looked at Eliana. Her phone was still on the table, angled wrong, no longer recording. She held it like armor. Her eyes were wet and wide, but determined not to cry. I wasn't letting this become another moment she'd have to recover from. "This isn't about interpretation," I said. "You said it out loud." My dad's hand twitched toward the folder. I stepped back without thinking. Not dramatic, not afraid, just protective in the way you are when someone reaches toward your child. Daniela spoke quickly, like speed could change reality. "You're doing this because you're jealous. You always—" "No," I cut in. "I'm doing this because you called my child the dumb one in front of a room full of cameras and then announced she gets nothing." The room shifted. People glanced at each other. Someone's expression tightened. Even if they laughed earlier, no one likes being reminded they did. My mom's voice went sharp. "We never—" "You did," I said, "and tonight was recorded. That's why Grandma wrote it this way." My dad's jaw worked like he was chewing something bitter. "What does that even mean?" someone nearby whispered. I kept it simple. "It means you don't get to cut Eliana out and keep living off Grandma's trust like it's your personal display case." My dad leaned forward. "You're humiliating us." I tilted my head. "Yes," I said quietly. "Interesting how it only counts when it happens to you." My mom snapped. "You're ruining our anniversary." I glanced at Eliana, then back at them. "You ruined a 12-year-old, I said. "I'm just refusing to play along." I didn't stay to argue details. I didn't stay to be provoked. I didn't stay because my daughter was still there, and the point was never winning a public argument. I turned to Eliana, held her hand out, and said, "Let's go home." She stood so quickly her chair nearly tipped. As we walked away, my dad called after me, loud enough for every phone. "This isn't over. We'll contest it." I didn't turn around. Good luck claiming you never said it when you said it into a microphone. And we left. We hadn't reached the parking lot before my phone started vibrating non-stop. My dad, my mom, Daniela, Brandon, a relative saved as Aunt Renee, because yes, there's always at least one enabler. Eliana walked beside me like she was bracing for something. In the car, she stared out the window and whispered, "Am I in trouble?" That question hit harder than anything my parents said. "No," I said immediately. "You did nothing wrong." She nodded, still tense. "Did I ruin their night?" I let out a short, tired laugh. "No, honey, they ruined their own night. They've been practicing for years." Her mouth twitched, almost a smile, then stopped like she wasn't sure she was allowed. At home, I made hot chocolate like it was a ritual. Eliana stirred and finally asked, "What does beneficiary mean?" "It means," I said, "Grandma wanted you protected." She stared into the mug. "Because I'm dumb?" My chest tightened. I crouched so we were eye level. "You're not dumb," I said.
You're 12. You're funny. You're stubborn. You have dyslexia. Reading is harder. That doesn't make you less." She swallowed. "I don't want them to hate me." "I know," I said, and I hated how well I knew. When Eliana fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table, opened the anniversary clip, and emailed it to Mr. Caldwell. No explanation, just the video. At 6:12 a.m., my email pinged. Subject: Confirmation of notice receipt, Elena Family Trust. That kind of message makes your stomach drop even when you expect it. I opened it. Mr. Caldwell confirmed he'd received the video, my dad's toast, my mom's laughter, the words, "That goes to Sophia too," all of it captured in a room full of applause. Then one sentence made my hands shake. "The triggering event occurred on record. Administrative steps will begin today." Administrative steps. Two boring words until they're aimed with purpose. At 7:03 a.m., my phone rang. My dad. I didn't answer. He called again, then left a voicemail. His voice was calm at first, which is when he's most dangerous. "Maya, you need to stop whatever you think you're doing. This is a misunderstanding." Then the calm broke. "If you don't fix this, you'll regret it." I saved the voicemail, not out of spite, because I'm a single mom, and single moms survive on records. At 8:20 a.m., Daniela sent a long message that began, "I can't believe you do this to Mom and Dad." I read it and felt something in my head go quiet. Not numb, just finished. I replied with one sentence, "You watched them do it to my child." Then I put my phone.
"Hi," the receptionist said, cheerful and unaware she was about to drop a bomb. "We're just calling to confirm that Eliana's grandmother and grandfather are here to pick her up." My lungs went cold. "What?" I said. "They said it's an emergency," she added. "They're listed as family on her file." Of course they were. Years ago, when I still believed in family, I'd listed them as emergency contacts. I hadn't updated it yet because my life is a constant loop of things I haven't updated, including my stress level. I gripped the phone so tightly my fingers ached. "Do not release her," I said, my voice sharp enough to cut. "I'm on my way." I left work early and drove like my heartbeat was steering. When I reached the school office, my mom was standing there with that bright smile she uses when she wants strangers to believe she's kind. My dad stood next to her, stiff and already irritated that things weren't going his way. Eliana wasn't there yet, thankfully. My mom turned when she saw me and said, overly sweet, "Maya, we just wanted to talk to her." My dad cut in, "We're her grandparents." I walked straight to the counter and looked at the receptionist. "Remove them," I said, "from her file, right now." My mom's smile cracked. "Maya, don't do this." My dad lowered his voice. "You're making this worse." I looked at him. "No," I said, "you did. You tried to corner my child at school." My mom's eyes flashed. "We're family." I laughed once, short and sharp. "You don't get to use that word after last night." My dad leaned closer. "We can handle this privately." I said, "You had your chance. You chose a microphone." The receptionist looked like she wanted to disappear behind the printer. My mom's voice shook. "We weren't going to hurt her." I stared at her. "You already did." Then I turned to my dad. "Leave." He puffed up. "Excuse me?" "Leave," I repeated, calm and clear, "or I'll ask the school to call security." His face tightened with the shock of being denied control in public. He opened his mouth, then noticed the parents passing through the office, the receptionist watching, the witnesses everywhere. He swallowed his anger. "Fine," he snapped. "We'll deal with this another way." They walked out. When Eliana came down a minute later, she saw my face and froze. "What happened?" she whispered. I knelt in front of her and smoothed her hair back. My hands were shaking, but my voice stayed steady. "I changed your school pickup list," I said. "Only me, okay?" She nodded, eyes wide. Were they... They wanted to talk, I said. They don't get to surprise you anymore. She swallowed. Then she said quietly, I'm sorry. Something in my chest cracked. No, I said immediately. You do not apologize for adults making bad choices. She leaned into me like she'd been holding herself upright on sheer will and finally ran out. I held her there in the school office without caring who saw. Let them remember that part. 2 weeks later, a thick envelope arrived by certified mail. Not to me, to them. I know because Aunt Renee texted me a photo like it was gossip she couldn't wait to share. Bright green sticker, signatures, official stamps. Across the top, in bold, Notice of Trustee Removal, Elena Family Trust. Below it, Notice of Termination of Occupancy Benefit. A formal way of saying you don't get to live there anymore. My hands went cold in a satisfying way. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. My mom. I answered. She was already spiraling. Maya, this is insane! This can't be happening! In the background, I heard my dad yelling, not his controlled anger, but real panic. I stayed quiet and let her talk until she ran out of breath. We didn't mean it. We didn't mean Eliana gets nothing. We were celebrating. You were performing, I said calmly. Maya, please, she begged. Call Mr. Caldwell. Tell him to stop this. I exhaled slowly. I can't, I said. And even if I could, I wouldn't. Her breath caught. You're punishing us. No, I said. I'm protecting her. My dad's voice cut in from the background, loud enough to carry. She planned this. She's always been bitter. My mom whispered, Stop! Like she was trying to control a fire with a paper towel. Then she came back, voice shaking. We're going to contest it. I said, You can try, evenly. We'll say you manipulated her, she snapped. We'll say Grandma wasn't well. My pulse jumped, but my voice stayed steady. Then you should probably stop talking, I said, because you're still on speaker and I'm still recording. Silence. Then something crashed in the background. You're recording me? My mom whispered. I'm a single mom. I record everything. I hung up. 3 days later, the official email arrived. Subject line, Establishment of Sub-Trusts, Beneficiary Allocation Confirmed. I opened it with my heart racing. It was brief, factual, and unemotional. 2 sub-trusts were established, one for Eliana, one for Sophia. Each would receive 50%. The $280,000 would be divided evenly, $140,000 into each protected account. The house, because you can't divide a house like a cupcake, would be sold. The proceeds would be placed into the 2 sub-trusts, split 50-50 after sale. At the bottom, occupancy benefit terminated. Vacate within 30 days. 30 days. My parents had built their identity around that house. It wasn't just a home, it was their stage, and now the lights were turning off. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the email until my eyes burned. Then Eliana walked in. Mom? She asked. Are we okay? I looked at my daughter, the child adults had labeled the dumb one, and something in me softened. We're okay, I said. We're safe. She nodded slowly. Does that mean they'll stop? I can't control what they do, I said honestly, but I can control what they get access to. Her eyes lifted. Access? I smiled a little. Yeah, I said. Access. That night, I emailed the school again. I updated every contact, every permission list, everything I should have fixed sooner. Then I sent one text to my parents, one sentence. You do not contact Eliana without me, ever. My dad replied immediately. You can't keep her from us. I typed back, watch me. Later, I learned the video didn't just spread, it exploded. Not because I shared it. I was busy parenting, but family group chats don't need encouragement. They spread like wildfire. Aunt Renee forwarded the clip like breaking news. Someone added captions. Someone zoomed in on my mom saying, Eliana is not included. Within 24 hours, half the family had seen it.
The other half pretended they hadn't, while forming very loud opinions. My parents tried damage control. It was taken out of context. It was a joke. We never said that. Mom was emotional. It didn't work. This time their words weren't floating in the air. They were saved in everyone's camera roll. The house sold 3 months later. It went for $1.2 million. Not a dollar went to my parents. No side allowance, no temporary help, nothing. The proceeds went straight into the 2 sub-trusts, split evenly, exactly as written. They lost the house, they lost trustee control, they lost the lifestyle cushion, and they lost the power to dangle inheritance like a leash. And they lost it because they couldn't stop themselves from humiliating a child into a microphone. My dad called me the day the sale finalized. His voice was calm in that unsettling way, like he still believed he had leverage. "We need help," he said. Not, "I'm sorry," not, "I was wrong," just, "we need." I said, "You should ask Daniela." Click. They did, of course they did. They expected the favorite to save them. Daniela didn't. She locked down Sophia's share and told my parents plainly that she wasn't giving them a cent. She blamed them for triggering the clause in the first place, then went back to her life. My parents spent years teaching her that love is conditional and legacy is currency. She just applied that lesson when it suited her. They eventually downsized into a small rental across town. Not tragic, just ordinary. The kind of place with no dining room big enough for speeches, no stage, no audience. Just 2 people finally left alone with themselves. A few years later, Eliana was 16 and reading on her own. Still dyslexic, still brilliant, just no longer ashamed. I went no contact. They lost access to me, and they lost access to her. So, did I go too far or not enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more stories like this.